Hello and welcome back to Refractions. I am Stephen Mallon and I am very excited for our episode today. And I just want to say a quick thank you to our sponsor, CYME, who are the creators of Peak2, which is an AI-powered photo organizer for the Mac platform. Peak2 centralizes your entire media collection, whether it is stored in folders, Lightroom, Apple Photos, Capture One, or other platforms into one sleek, easy to manage interface. With smart features like automatic categorization, prompt-based search, and face recognition, Peak2 transforms the way you handle your photos and videos so you can organize less and create more. Peak2, everything in one place, organized like magic. Go to cyme.io for the links and a free trial, and it's cyme.io. All right. With that out of the way, Sven Eisenhut-Hug is the director and founder of Photo Basel. So Sven, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So if you can just start off for people that don't know, because I don't even think I read everything about you. What is your history with photography?
Look, I graduated from one of the oldest hospitality management schools in the world, and being from Basel, Switzerland, you kind of grow up by visiting the zoo, watching soccer games like Swiss, German soccer, and your parents will drag you to Art Basel. It's just like one of those things that you will just it's like a museum when you grow up. It's every June you go there, and once you grow up, it's you try to sneak a VIP card because it's really fun. It's highly energetic. Um, so after graduating from hospitality management school, I figured that it'd be a cool week to create something along with. So I have no background in photography at all, which the longer I'm in this industry, the better because I'm surrounded by incredible talent, so I'm not going to touch a camera anymore. So that's a bit why and how we kind of started the fair by being Baselers, locals that just try to enrich the program that's already here.
Well, that's amazing. So
Yeah.
what was the first iteration of Photo Basel?
10 years ago, 2015, we
Wow.
we started. Yeah. We're celebrating our 10th anniversary next year. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so it was a humble start. We had a roughly, I don't know, I think 18 to 20 galleries to sign up. We had a small, super cute space. It was a Tito Road, the acclaimed artist's former atelier. And we just started. Like we didn't I think the great thing about that was we were like, because we were newbies, we weren't anxious to talk with everybody. So we literally talked to Gagosians, Svenners. We just didn't care. We visited a lot of art fairs, but we were clueless. But I think that was a good thing because otherwise we would have been frightened, to talk to everybody. So we did talk to a lot of people, and then when you say Basel, it just rings a bell because Basel literally stands for highly cultural events. It's a major museum city with one of the finest museums on the planet, and of course, it's the hometown of acclaimed Art Basel. So a lot of people, were curious, and a lot of people were, doubting us too. They're like, "It's never gonna happen. Like you have no idea and stuff." And yeah, we were like couple of guys just doing it for fun, and then it was an instant success, and yeah, we took it from there.
That's amazing. So 10 years. So how, like, tell me a little bit about the evolution. Like what's changed over the decade? Like you said, like you were just calling everybody at the beginning, like, hey, let's invite Gagosian. Let's see if,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, we obviously we were able to move locations in the second year towards the Volkshaus, which is a compound slightly larger, renovated by Herzog de Meuron, which are world Pritzker Prize winning, I think so, Pritzker Prize winning architect. I'm not sure though, but very, very esteemed and acclaimed. So it's a really cool complex to be hosting a fair. So that basically enabled us to grow. So, but we still keep it because we have to, because space is scarce. We have roughly 40 galleries. So it's a boutique fair. So we can put a lot of emphasis onto the quality, which is super needed, especially during that high-paced time of our Basel. Um, what has evolved? We've been, obviously we became professionals at the beginning. It was a hobby. The first year we didn't. The two first years we just did it, as a hobby, and then basically it became my profession, and I'm doing this ever since. And obviously, being almost 10 years on it, I think it's interesting to see that, a lot of my colleagues at other fairs, they already left their position. So it's interesting to see that we are still quite young at heart, or, we're still young. But we have this track record of doing these fairs since 10 years, and we do a couple of other fairs too. So I think that professionalism and that kind of like personal contact, so you still talk to me after all those years, that's kind of, I think it's really a USP of our fair. It's a very personal, intimate fair, I would say.
That is actually, I think, pretty unique that you're still, you're the founder of the fair and still
Yeah.
running it 10 years in.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't,
and we own it. There's no corporation that owns us. It's like it's independently owned, which gives us, it's not always great, but it gives us also a lot of freedom and flexibility, and I think it's quite rare. If you look at those, I don't know, 300 plus fairs, or art fairs in the world, I think it's pretty rare that we're like major. It's still a family business, kind of.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Is there like a text, is there like a text string for like the other photo, like the other directors? Because I know like, the actors from the Avengers still, I think, have like a group chat that they like message each other on. Um, do you talk to the other fair directors sometimes? Like, here's where
Um,
to get the new walls or
it's actually funny. We always try to, benchmark, and I think there are some. I would say I would call them major fairs. They might not talk to us just because they're biggies and they don't really care. With the others, we have some really good relationships. Like I'm friends with the former director of Photo London Art Fair, which is quite a large photography art fair. I'm really good with the Paris Photo director, and I benchmark with Positions Art Fair in Germany, Berlin. They're quite big, yeah, and within the others, I would call, I'd never liked the term satellite art fair, because I always figured we're not a satellite, we're like an independent photography art fair. It just happens at the same time as our Basel, right? But of course, we're in direct touch with Volta, with Liste, and even with our Basel, like we keep each other some. I mean, we keep them a bit informed. But it's not like it's not like we have this, a quarter talk that no, it's not like that. Everybody is a bit on its own,
yeah.
unfortunately. Yeah.
So we were just, you were talking a little bit about the satellite aspect of it. And it's really true because I mean, you're your own identity, but you are like, I think it is a good thing that the fairs are happening simultaneously, right? For
Yeah.
people that are traveling, they can
Yeah.
come in, see the main fair, see you.
Yeah.
Who else is happening? Volta?
Volta, Liste. There was a great fair. Scope was there at one point. And then there's a new one coming up called Africa Basel. So there's a couple of fairs that happen during that period. It's just a great momentum to be there. If you have, you have to have your dedicated niche, like everybody knows what to get. It's like a restaurant, you want to go to the Italian one, you want to go to the French one, you need to know what you get. And I think that profile, and also the logo, the Photo Basel logo, the P and the B. At the beginning, I remember a lot of people told us like that looks like a cult, or what is that? It's a ping pong thing. And now everybody loves it, yeah, and I think we from the very beginning we had a very strong identity, I guess. And we were just lucky, I think. Yeah.
I don't know if it can be luck for 10 years, maybe 1 year of luck, but 10 years, it's gotta be a little bit, a little bit more.
Yeah, maybe. And we survived the pandemic. That's something I think, I've seen a lot of fairs vanish or completely change. It was very tough for us, and we were fortunate, to be honest, to go. We were literally we were trying to do something in Basel, but our Basel didn't do anything. We were still hoping to do something in fall, but nothing happened. And then our friends from Positions Art Fair in Berlin said like, "Hey, do you guys want to come out and do something with us at Tempelhof?" And financially, it wasn't incredibly lucrative, but morally, it was incredible. There were 22 galleries following us in this massive World War II hangar, airport. And it was morally a boost, so we could really, we were able to get through that period. Yeah.
It was so nice, right? When we were able to go back and see some people in
Yeah.
person and get
Yeah.
out of
Yeah.
our homes and those
Yeah.
bubbles, of like
And
6, 10 people.
everybody was scared that everything would switch to online, and I think we were even the first fine art photography fair that did a complete online version, like literally. And we had, I don't know, massive. We had a couple of 10,000 visitors, but sales were like they were not there, So
Hmm.
I think that's another thing, that people really, after we were able to go out again, they were like hungry for to see art in person, like tangible, something that,
Yeah.
yeah.
You mentioned earlier that you've got a couple of other art fairs as well.
Um, well, if you're in that game, and as you mentioned, if you do it professionally, and I have a great team, an incredible, capable team, and it's a small team, but very, very skilled. After a few years, a gallery, it's actually the president of the Swiss Galleries Association came to me. He's a gallery at Photo Basel, Fabian Walter, and he said, "Listen, there's Zurich, the financial capital of Switzerland needs a fair." And I was like, "Nah, Basel, Zurich, they're like rivals. They don't like each other." And I said, "Look, we have our Basel here and stuff." But then the pandemic hit, and we had a lot of time on our hands to reflect. And we came to the conclusion that we can just try it. And now we just closed. We just finished the third edition this last past Sunday.
Wow.
Yeah, so which is great. And I'm also in the preparations of creating a very, very boutique fair dedicated to the African continent and its diaspora called Africa Basel, happening at the same time as Photo Basel and Art Basel next June, but also with a partner. So I can't I can't split out. I remain the face of Photo Basel, but it's interesting to yeah, it's interesting to absorb the knowledge and the know-how that we have now, to do that. And within Switzerland, it's interesting because, yeah, the groups that we speak to are not only the big collectors, it's also the how do you call it, average Joe or average Jane, just the average people, because photography is, at least that's my understanding, it's rather easy to understand, and you can also afford it to some extent, because the average amount that we have at Photo Basel is probably between 4 to 8K, maybe 4 to 12K, roughly. There's exceptions, we had Pertinsky's for over 20K, but the general audience, the general audience, they flock to the fair as well, and they buy, and that's interesting.
I think that's great to hear for everybody, for the
Yeah,
artists and for the
yeah,
dealers.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
so well, thank you, by the way, for doing this. I didn't realize you had just closed a fair yesterday. So
No,
thank you for
it's not yesterday. It's a week ago. I'm sorry.
week ago. Oh,
Sunday, a
okay.
week ago. I'm sorry. I got confused. A week ago. But yeah, still, we were like, still.
Yeah.
It's
Still
rather
very
recent.
fresh.
Rather recent. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Um, so how is the market in Europe for photography? Like I feel that the contemporary market in the US is like it's suffering a little bit and is leaning towards more unique work right now,
Yeah.
just because of the influx of like the amount of work. But how is it for Europe, and what are your thoughts on that?
Um, I've only been once to or twice to APAD in New York, and I think the classical photography really is the market is in the US. I think so. Look, ever since I started, people were like, the elder dealers and gallers, they were like always a bit like complaining and telling me like, look, the golden years of the early, the 80s, the 90s, and it was like insane. If we sold out the first day, we had to rehang everything. I've never, my team and I, we've never experienced that kind of golden in times. We've never had that. So um I think, looking back at our most recent edition in last June, it was a very strong edition. Gallery sold really, really well. So,
Awesome.
but again, it's also that we cater to different kind of groups, and we do 90 guided tours for free for people.
Wow.
We invite literally tons of people to really and start the dialogue. So I think it's been rougher and tougher. However, after the pandemic, to be quite honest, you can't tell anymore. It's like you can't rely on that was an auction result and it was great, and then the fair is great. You cannot tell anymore. I think it's really, it's mixed. I think Tomorrow, and then Wednesday, actually, Paris Photo will start, which is still the most prestigious art fair for photography, the most important one, I would say, followed by, of course, APAD and some others. But this is also always a bit, that always gives a bit, a sense of what to expect. If they sell well or fine, it's going to be a good year. If not, but in general, what always strikes me when I walk around in Basel and I see the queues in front of the museums, and it's a lot of young people queuing up. It's a lot of young people. So we our mission is to convert potential buyers into collectors. And I think photography is a fantastic medium for that. And I think there will always be a need, and it's always, there will always be a market. It's yes, I've read an incredible quote that our grandparents' generation, they saw the amount of photographs they saw is basically the amount that we see from the moment we get up until lunch, like in their, so for us and for them in their entire lifespan, with Instagram, with everything, with the media.
Yeah.
And I think especially that's important to educate people, what's a great photograph and why is it great and what's an edition, and really to play around with that. And I think as long as we are keen on doing that, I think we'll be okay.
Good to hear. Good to hear.
I hope so. I mean,
I hope so too. I mean, I've got I've got an ongoing practice. I sell my edition prints and everything. So I am not the artist that changes based on the market.
Yeah.
I have, made some decisions about the editions and everything, and I am, sticking to my guns. We've added a couple of things. A couple of things have been more successful than others.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm a strong believer of the edition print. I think that is the way it's got to be.
And what we also realized, that we have a dedicated sector, it's called Beyond Photography. So it's basically, we look at works that have been worked with, for example, there's an artist, she's basically stitching on top of an artwork, making it unique, collage. And I think that's interesting, to see, okay, that's an audience, that's a whole new audience that might be reluctant towards photography or buying photography just because it lacks the uniqueness. So I think that's an interesting thing to see as well. So it does evolve, and I also think, we had an NFT cabinet back in 2021. It was really cool. We had some massive Samsung screens. But it's tricky, people wanted to buy, but then they said, okay, but I want to buy the screen as well. Like, it's not going to work, it's not going to happen. Right. So I think we're at this place where it's maybe a generation that we need to groom now, and maybe an older generation of collectors that stop collecting, but I think, yeah.
So it was just, somebody had asked me about buying like a JPEG, because he wanted to, potentially have it as a screensaver.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I don't really do that, but we were in a hotel in Times Square over Christmas when my family was in town, and they had, instead of having like a screensaver showing the hotel and what's going on in Times Square, it was a curated display of artwork. It was like short videos, and there was a QR code to like get to the artwork and everything. And I found that as really interesting, because there's televisions in every single room, in every single hotel.
But honestly, check out Samsung The Frame, it's called. They have an art sector that you can buy artworks and look at them. And I don't know how popular it is, and it's supposed to be almost like, it looks like a real artwork. So there's no flare or nothing, like no reflection. So it's interesting. I think if you want to start selling JPEGs, you got to be on the blockchain. If you're on the blockchain,
doing anything with it?
Excuse me?
Are you doing anything? Like, is the art fair doing anything blockchain wise?
No. We're always, we were keen on looking into the heritage. I think that's an interesting point. Vetting works if they're elder, if checking if they're, I've known a gentleman who actually spreads some kind of dust onto the works, and then this kind of dust is on a blockchain. But I think you really got to believe in this thing, so it's a bit like, no, I think We only work with galleries that we trust and that have a track record. And of course, I also myself, I bought a piece. I'm not a big collector, but I bought a piece because I liked it. And then a half a year later, I saw it as a museum's edition. It was a very, very good museum, but they basically sold the same print that did cost me 5,000 Swiss francs, $5,000 for about 180 francs, which is like, so it's really, so and it wasn't for me though, because I love the print, but I called the gallery. I'm like, are you like aware that this body of work, that's something you sell for, 5,000 francs, and it's now, and they were like, okay, yeah, we know, but we didn't know. So they called the studio manager of the artist, and yeah, and it was almost the same size. So those are the things that we have to be aware, because otherwise, we're not able to groom collectors, because
Yeah.
that's not serious.
The way that I've handled like kind of requests about that in the past with museums is that like if you want to sell this, it has to be like a poster for the exhibition, right? It's got
Yeah,
to have like the copy, the dates, and like make it like those pretty vertical, poster formats, and then you can sell it, and we'll do it as a
yeah,
license. But I don't want people to get you know pissed off about
yeah.
buying the 30 by 45 print from the gallery for thousands of dollars and then seeing it showing rolled up for $30, and yeah,
That's bad. No, it's
it's
bad.
bad. Yeah.
You have to be careful. Yeah.
So how do galleries, or how do you choose the galleries, and like I mean what's the vetting process for the fair?
Well, basically, everyone is invited to apply. We do have a selection. I don't want to call it selection committee, because we never liked other galleries judge their colleagues. We always thought that's a political thing that we saw it at other fairs and we don't like it. So we came up with experts, with circles. So it's the management circle that has a voice, basically. Then it's an advisory circle. And basically those are galleries that we, ask if, we want to do a special exhibition, and we ask what they think. And then we have a curatorial circle. And that circle basically does consist of institutions, museum experts, collectors, and people, curators, people from the industry. And they, together with us, basically, we screen the applications. And then, we sometimes also call them up and say, like, try to get in a dialogue and say, like, hey, this is an interesting position. However, we've seen something similar last year, or so it's a very, unless it really has no quality, then it's a no-no. But if it does, we're always happy to get in a dialogue with the respective gallery, and see if they can adapt to what we think works. But
Nice.
you cannot interfere too much, because the risk is at the gallery side. So I really, if you tell a gallery, like, we want you to come with this particular position, then you should take the risk, because it's, so we always try to balance that out, and put it in perspective, I think. So that's basically, so yeah, you can apply. Galleries can apply until January 31st. And then basically, we're really quick by screening it. And we have a lot of regular galleries. We're fortunate, so that some galleries, they're literally regulars almost, and they want to come every year, and they want to keep their booth. And then it's yeah, it's a nice little family.
What is like, is that like a 50-50 split, do you think? Or like how much of that is returning? I mean, that's great for you, right? Like it's great that for the fair that like there's enough galleries that are really happy and like want to
Well,
stay in
I
their
mean, you
exact
always, yeah,
spot.
but you always still there are some galleries who really go after. I mean, that's it's just the case. I think there are very few art fairs in the world that can just sit back and do nothing, and applications will come in.
If only.
It's not. I don't think it's the norm, to be honest. I think the majority of the fairs they have to be, we have to go out and acquire, and hustle, right?
Yeah,
A
for
bit.
sure.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So yeah, so that's that. And what was the split about?
Oh, it was just
Fifty
curious,
fifty.
like how much of it is like return. You were saying you've got a group that are like,
Yeah,
return.
I mean, that's a tough. Yeah, I would say, if we're lucky, a little bit more than 50%. Yeah, if we're lucky, I mean, we have surveys and it says like 72%, but I think it's between probably 50 to 60%. Usually they want to come back, so it's great, it's wonderful, and it adds up to this atmosphere that we have. So it's a very intimate fair, with a lot of people that it's like it's a reunion. It's a class reunion. People come and they're like, oh my God, we love it so much. They sometimes even book the hotel in advance. We want to come back and swim in the Rhine and see everybody, and it's very intimate. So my longest employee, she works with us for 8 years now. She's literally started as an intern, 17 years old. She's still with us, and I think it's great to see, yeah, that low of a turnover. I think that's interesting for galleries, because it gives them this kind of like trust that they buy into something that they know, right? That
I
evolves. We have a new sponsor, or a private bank that's sponsoring us. We have an insurance company that does sponsor us. We have a watch company that does sponsor us. They even have a price. So those things are new. Or we come up with. We started to do dinners at the fair, which is super exquisite. It's very exclusive. And we just started humble with like 20 people, and then a year, like this year, we had like both floors with galleries that wanted to join with their collectors, and artists sometimes are there, and press people, and it's not a party. It's like you're dining in one of the largest photo museums at the time. Basically, it's like a museum. You're in the middle of it. So those are the things we like to fine tune and come up with, and excite our stakeholders.
I have never heard of any of the fairs doing a dinner party on site. I think that sounds so much fun,
Yeah,
just
there
like
are some. There are some. It's not a party though. It's a seated dinner, but it's hey, it's really
gathering.
cool. And it's off the it's during the off hours, and you have no idea how cool it is, to walk through a fair during the off hours. It's just fantastic for collectors, or everybody, because it's very intimate, and you can really be and sit, and I think this is really, yeah, it's really cool. But it takes a lot of logistics. Like, it was really tough, because you have to basically get rid of all the visitors that, like, really quick, and then set up the tables and have the food ready, and it's like yeah, it was stressful, but we managed. The team did a great job, and it was really well perceived. So I think there's no way around it not to do that in the future.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Um, and then I guess one of there's this question about people who can apply. Like, would like schools apply? Would like curators that don't actually have like a brick and mortar but want to do, a booth? Because I know a couple of people that have like closed their galleries just out of financial, or
Yeah.
the rent went up too
Look,
high.
we do not. I mean, it's a galleries only art fair, so we do not exhibit individual artists.
Okay.
However, we've had. I remember we've had a local photographer, and she already had a kind of museum show, and she was not represented by a gallery, and we just loved her work, and then we just said, like, hey, it's like a feature. Can we invite you to do like a feature, so you're like an independent artist, but we do like the work, we do like what you stand for, and so we did that. But that's an exception, and it's not a classic booth. Schools, no. We do always like to work with institutions. For example, special exhibition are usually also in a close cooperation with a institution.
Okay.
But like exhibiting, it's literally it's a very classic galleries only fair. Yeah.
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 I mean, it's like you said, it's not a huge fair. So like there's enough galleries out there that you can fill it. So
Or there's a sponsor booth, or there's a bar coming in, or there's something like that. But yeah, and you have to be very, careful with when it comes to quality, because yeah. But there are some. I've seen some fairs, and it was interesting, because basically the husband is a photographer, but he has a different last name than his wife that runs the gallery, so she could basically show him as well. And I think if the quality is fine, that's okay. I
yeah.
wouldn't, and but doing a classic artist run fair, it's it might be a bit more I don't know, chaotic, or it's difficult. I've always thought, it'd be interesting to have like all the schools, like the art schools, combine, and basically do a fair with them or for them. That'd be really interesting to see the new talents. But yeah, it's I think a fair is always commercial. It's always commercial, and you could do. We do have a small program. We have panel talks. We haven't had any portfolio reviews because you have to be very careful not to turn into a festival because yeah.
There needs to be a separation. There is a separation because, like you said, like the purpose of the fair is sales. You know, the gallery is
Yeah.
there to make money,
Yeah.
and you know the programming is important, and I love it, and I've been, you know, I've worked on it
Yeah.
for a number of years and everything. But I'm also, like, you know, very aware and, you know, very conscious that my mortgage and everything gets paid via selling my prints, not just talking about them. You know,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. You need to have some sort of a program, for sure, but you also have to be careful because for us, our Basel has about 100 program points throughout the
oh,
week, hundreds.
wow.
So there's nothing you can compete with that, So if we do, and we always try to do the program points, a lot of them like during the off hours, so the panel talks are in the morning, so that we don't interfere. I remember one time. It's, I don't know, 5, 6 years ago, we were featuring a film. We have an art house movie theater literally next door, and it was like, we said, okay, let's do that. Let's air it at 6:30, right? And it was a panel discussion going on before the screening, and it was obviously an artist. However, we marked, we did market, the event, on the restrooms and everything, and then some galleries got mad. They're like, why are you pulling out people? And they were true. It stuck, so you never pull out people. Always bring them in. It's like a casino. We have a very cool run bar that's quite inexpensive, for drinks and everything. Why? Because we want people not to leave the premise. We do not want them to leave the fair. Once you leave the fair, especially in a city like Basel, where you see like, oh, there's the art parkour, oh, there's something else, and oh, there's an Art Basel VIP shuttle. Maybe I can get that, and then they're off. So it's like a casino, Keep them in,
Yep.
and don't distract them with too much that basically might not lead into or translate into sales.
So no
So we've learned.
windows, no clocks. You're pumping oxygen in to keep everybody happy. And
Hey, actually, it's funny. It's a little bit of a labyrinth, like because it's a kind of a special venue. So you have to go up first. The first floor is the starting point. Entrance is up, and also to go out, you have to go back up again. So the traffic remains good, So people will walk through it twice. And I remember as an elder lady, and she literally like she came to me. She's like, I can't find the exit, And I was like very serious. I said, yeah, I'll show you personally in case you carry an artwork. If you bought something, I'll show you personally. And she's like, and obviously we help out, but it's literally like that. You keep them entertained and yeah. Yeah.
it's awesome. And you're coming to Miami this year, right?
Yeah, it's the second time we do this. It's a collab with Scope Art Fair. They have been they have been in Basel, and we've always thought it'd be interesting to to branch out a bit and be a guest in another art fair. And being Swiss, it's tricky to do something in America. It's legally it's tough. And yeah, there hasn't been anything in Miami so far. I think there was once a fair called Focus. I think it was also by the late Stephen Cohn from LA. He told me once he did something there. So it's like a joint venture. So yeah, it's a very easy collaboration that we do with a bunch of galleries that come out.
So did you pull the galleries that were from Photo Basel and say, hey, we're also going to go to Miami. Do you want to come with us? Or how'd that work?
We just announced it. We just announced it and said like, hey, if you want to come, feel free. It's because we think it's interesting to also explore a different market. And I think Scope is really established. It's a major fair. It's on the beach. Yeah, and of course, photography. It's always nice to have. It's like you get double marketing. You get Photo Basel's marketing and you get Scope's marketing, and it's interesting. And a bunch of galleries, and you always meet new people, and I think it's worth to try and do it.
For sure. So do you want to get your own tent?
Yeah, I never say never, but maybe it's maybe easier to do something in Europe for us than overseas.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. It's complicated. I think Florida has its own network of logistical issues.
Yeah, and unions and stuff. So no, we wouldn't, we wouldn't want to do that. And I think it's a nice collaboration with Scope, and it's nice we do this for the second time now, and No, it's been really friendly and interesting, and and galleries sold last year, so it's I'm excited to see how they're doing this year, and I think no, I'll be there, so yeah, I'm looking forward to Miami.
I love the tents on the beach. Both Untitled and Scope, I think,
Yeah.
are just it's such a treat being able to like, step out to the lounge and just be at the ocean. When you need to sit down and take a little break from the artwork and that's the view,
Yeah.
is just fantastic. And the
Yeah.
light in those, it is always just, you're in this giant softbox.
Yeah.
So everybody drops, 5 to 10 years. It's just
Yeah.
it's like the most glamorous light you're ever gonna have.
Oh, it's true.
So
And it's December. It's cold here and it's warm there. So yeah, I don't know. It's always it's nice. So I'm glad we did this and are doing this. And yeah, but we always have ideas, but I think doing something on our own, it's easier in Europe. I think so. Yeah.
okay.
Just
Yeah,
because you know the rules and regulations and have the capabilities to do something. Yeah.
for
Yeah, for sure.
sure. So this has been fantastic. I actually don't have any other questions for you. So is there anything else you would like to share that we didn't talk about?
Well, galleries can still apply. If some of you, the listeners, want to come out to Basel, shoot us an email. We're happy to welcome you. Yeah, no, I think, yeah, we just, hope to celebrate a nice 10-year anniversary and then continue for another 10 years and see where we will be, and no, it's all good. I think you touched upon, or I talked so long, it's about so many things that
No, it's been really informative because I mean it's a little, for me as an American-based artist, it's a little bit of a mystery how the European photo market is compared to the
yeah,
US. It's like I know
it is.
that, like the major dealers that go over and the blue chip galleries and everything that are at, Perry Photo, and they always are announcing these massive sales and everything, but they're operating in a different market than where my work is.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so I'm always getting, when you gave a lot of insight on, like you said, it's a boutique fair and everything, but that sounds accessible for dealers that I work with, and like other artists should come and visit and see the work that's being shown in
totally.
the other galleries that are shown at your
You know,
fair.
I think that's I usually take my mom who's in the hospitality industry as an example. I always think that people like her, they don't necessarily walk into a classic gallery on the street, or at least not in Switzerland. It's just not like, unless they're really interested, or unless, so they always have a fear that if they're entered, they need to buy something, or they look stupid because they don't know. And I think a good fair really enables people to get into a dialogue. And I keep telling the galleries, to really, I know it's hard to stand up for 8 or plus hours. I know that. However, in Switzerland, at least, you never know who has money to buy, because you just don't know. And I think a fair is just a great um, uh, vehicle to really enter it and just talk to everybody, without fear. And I think a great gallerist is really open for that. And I think that's what a fair really enables and connects people. And I think I always think people like my mom, that's a target group too. And they, because they have money, and they walk in and they talk and they see something they like, and then you get that explained. And as I said, we do a lot of guided tours. We always advise people to buy with their eyes and not with their ears, not just thinking, okay, that might, go up in value. I think it's crucial that you like the work, that you live with the work. And if it does not decrease in value, even better, Um, but I think fairs are really, really great for that. And I think it's also the momentum, like a real collector, they long to get in first hours and see the works, and I think it's just it's still, I think it's not outdated, which is interesting. It's not outdated. A lot of fairs became obsolete because you can, car shows, they closed car shows, they closed watch shows. But I think art fairs because we're dealing with multiples, but in general, you're dealing with unique bodies of work, and it's a very personal something. And I think, yeah, I think that's why we're not yet extinct.
I hope not. We had, you know, just when we were just before we started recording, we started talking about your youngest new collector, your child, and I loved. So I
Yeah.
guess you're a pretty kid-friendly fair.
Yeah, it's a good thing that you mentioned that. Yeah, we're very kid friendly. In addition, I think we're also one of the only guys that allows dogs. And it's also because my mom has a dog, and we're just like, if they behave, and we get like a lot of requests. Even for the one in Zurich now, we got literally twice a day someone asked us like, can we bring the dog? And if it's on a leash and well behaved, why not? You know? And I think you really have to. I always keep telling my team that we are like concierge, concierge of not a 5-star hotel, but like a great 4-star plus hotel. So it's still a bit like you don't feel like it's a 4-star, and we're concierge, and we try to enable people. And I think it's part of the service to, to allow dogs, to allow kids, and the only thing that we dislike are big bags. Big bags are worse than kids, huh? Because if you touch something, that's the thing, but other than that, we love kids, and no one can be too young, even with the strollers, like it's fine, it's a new generation, and we have to groom this generation, and we have to nurture this generation. And if this generation wants to walk around with strollers and their dogs, like, who are we to tell them no? And then
Yeah.
they might not show up because they were like, okay, it's a nice Saturday, but if I can't bring my dog, I'm not going to come.
Yep.
No.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
we never, and we so far we've never had any, touch wood, never had any issues or problems, so it's been fine. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. We have
What
to
are
be
you
open
doing
for.
to nurture like the next generation of collectors? Like what are some tools, or what is, what can we do to get those sales going?
I think we have to educate them. Education is really, really important, so they know, they know why, what's an addition, why a price goes up, why it does cost that much. Um, I'm not even sure if we have to. I mean, it's very playful. We just have to make sure they find us. I think it's crucial that they find us, that we speak to them, and that they basically, yeah, that they emotionally attach with the works. I think that's the most crucial one, and they will. And I think it's the same as in a restaurant. If you only have elder chefs in the kitchen, you might attract a different kind of generation. But if you start implementing also a younger crew, and that's what we always have. I always advise galleries to also bring maybe an emerging talent, because these guys have their own following. And we did this exception with this really talented young lady, that a photographer and artist that had a, a museum-like show, but she was not represented, but she had a huge following on Instagram, over 100,000, I think. And then bringing her in, having a live conversation with her on Instagram that's been viewed by, I don't know, 10,000 people. That's interesting. So her followers might say, oh, she's there. We gave her tickets. They come in. We do partnerships with magazines that we know they not only attract um, um, collectors, but also maybe, we have no influencers. Sometimes I feel like our industry has basically no influencers. It's the artists themselves, it's the galleries or the curators, but the curators you can't buy, right? So it's probably the artists that show something on their profiles that then attracts people. And if they get free tickets, then they will bring their audience. And I think that's crucial. They need every gallery, every artist. That's the momentum,
Yeah.
that's the momentum. That's why you cannot be too little in galleries. That a fair with 12 galleries will not work. You need a certain scale to have people, and galleries that invite their people, and also artists that are interactive.
What do you think the minimum, like, how many galleries would be the minimum to
20.
create 20?
20.
20 is the cut,
Yeah.
a minimum
We
of 20.
started we started with 20, and I think 20 is yeah, 20 is good. Everybody needs to be involved. Everybody needs to do their job, like everybody needs to invite their collectors. But I think 20 is, we started with 20 and it worked. So I think I wouldn't go below 20. I've seen art fairs with like 12 galleries, and that's kind of like, it looks a bit sad and not empty, but it's too, yeah. I think for me, it's 20. But you see the mega fairs with 280 galleries, and it works
Yeah.
as well. And I'm like, I get exhausted just after 2 hours. So I think there needs to be like a balance.
I met one curator that, he goes down to Miami for Basel, Miami, but like then
Yeah,
never leaves. Like he goes there just for like 3 days and doesn't make
yeah.
it to any of the other fairs, which is a little unfortunate. But I think it is because of part of it's
This,
the scale and
yeah.
also just I guess the price point of what the museum he's working with.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
And they do a very good job. They do a very good job keeping you in, huh? They're prepping the VIPs. You have access to the VIP lounge. They do tours with buses that cater you to the museum and then but bring you back. So they're not making it easy for other fairs to pull their collector base because they're very, they have like their agenda and they have a lot of stuff going on and they treat them really well. So it's not easy. But I can imagine you for a big fair like that, you might need three days. Yeah.
yeah,
And
they
that's
they
something, yeah.
no, go ahead. So
Yeah, that's what we like at Photo Basel. I think with the 40 galleries in this space, that's kind of like not too big. I think within 2 hours, you've been around. You circled, and I think that's 2 hours. You've seen something. You go back, yeah, and I think that's a good. To me, my attention span. If I look back at my school, like I probably had like 30 seconds or something. So I think 2 hours is fine. But if I have to stay in an art fair for a few hours, yeah.
and I think that's the moment where you take the break, right? Like that's when you grab, the sandwich or the coffee, sit down, take a little breather, and then
Yeah.
possibly do, the
But
second
look
pass.
around, look around. I've been in Paris 2 weeks ago, and I've visited I think 8 fairs in 4 days, and I think not a lot of those fairs had actual seating possibilities. And I wonder, when at Photo Basel we have a sponsor who fantastic furniture company, and we have a lounge, or actually two. It's not even a VIP lounge. It's accessible, right? We don't have space for a VIP lounge, but it's accessible, and you can sit, and you can have a coffee for I don't know $4 or something really inexpensive because we want you to sit down, relax, recharge, and boom, go back up, and buy potentially. But I wonder sometimes I'm like, wow, I even visited a fair that had no cloakroom in winter. What do you like? No cloakroom? It's tough.
Yeah, because I mean it's freezing outside, it's like the hat and the bags and
Yeah,
all
and,
that the
and you have to.
stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And then you walk, and then you're in, and then it's too hot, and so it's to come back from the very first question, what we've changed. We adapted. So we were like, okay, we need to have a nice cloakroom. We need to do it potentially for free for the VIPs because they're not want to pay $2 for each piece.
Yeah.
It's fine. So let's do that. Let's do these. As I said, the concierge, like where they're comfortable with. And they can drop all their baggages. And I wonder sometimes, even at our Basel, you were not allowed, due to probably bombing, to bring suitcase. But sometimes I arrive the same day, right? If I need to check in the hotel and I can't store the luggage anywhere, it's not really, it's not customer friendly.
Yeah, I
So
had I had that experience at one fair where it's like I had my backpack and I wasn't allowed to bring my
yeah,
backpack inside, but the coat check was actually like, you know, a couple of minutes away from the fair itself, and it was a little irritation of having to like get my wallet out, get my phone out, get all this stuff that I normally just carry. Like I drink a lot of water just because I'm talking all the time.
yeah,
It was just like
yes,
carrying the stuff in the pockets now was just
yeah.
kind of like
Yeah,
really.
but
But
that's the moment where you potentially lose a visitor. You potentially lose one, or you annoy them. And I think we have to be really careful not to annoy anyone. And just to be, we have an issue. We're in an old building, so it's not really great for handicapped people, for
mm,
disabilities. It's tricky. So we needed to figure out the way so they can ring a doorbell, we can pick them up and put them in a special elevator with us to bring them
yep.
up, or we even carried a person once, to a stage where, there was nothing. But these are things you don't think if you walk, it's like, no. But then over the years, you're like, oh yeah, we need to be accessible, right?
Yep.
Um, because we have to be, and I think that's a key word, we have to be really inclusive. And I think we can also not judge people on, maybe you used to be able to judge people if they drove a fancy car and were like dressed fancy, but nowadays you cannot. We have big collectors, they walk around in jogging pants.
Yeah. It's
And they
camouflage.
literally look like they partied all night, but they are the big spenders. So, sometimes, to be honest, I wished, and I did speak with some other art fair directors about that. I wished we could take all the galleries during the setup period and we take them to an offsite meeting. And we just, like a coach, you put them like we're a team this week, and that's how we try to do it. It's a team, and it's not this guy against this guy, but it's a team. And if we all do our very best, we'll be successful, and we all have a job to do. And I think, yeah, and sometimes, great galleries, they might not be able to sell because they're not salesperson. And maybe a not so good gallery with not such a great quality, maybe the gallerist is an incredible sales guy and he sells insanely well. You have to take that into consideration,
Yeah.
and that's what I'm saying. It's an ongoing process, with still a lot of potential for all the stakeholders.
I think Future Fair does something where there's like a percentage of the overall sales goes back like across the board. Do you know about this?
I've heard rumors. Yeah, I've heard rumors. Look, I think it's very tricky because galleries might not tell you how much they sold for. It's that easy, and it's their right not to. And I think the system, it would be great and fair, but then you need to find a financial system so you charge, so everything they sell, you charge them on your account basically, because otherwise you won't be able to come out. I think it's interesting that potential blue chip galleries pay more for a booth than the emerging ones. I think that makes a lot of sense for the big art fairs, where literally, because they need they feed off the small of the younger emerging ones as well. So I think that's a rather smart idea. But I think, yeah, taking commission is a very tricky thing, and I wouldn't go down that road.
Okay. Yeah, I wonder, it's like you said, it's like maybe it's at the point of sale aspect where it's like you're supplying all of the credit card readers, but if it's a cash sale or if they end up just going to their Square account and through their phone and not
Oh,
using the system.
you don't go there. It's an easy game. You sell them the booth, so the square meter or the wall space. You do the marketing, you do the invitations, you do everything else, but the sales is for them.
It's for them.
And I mean, they have to split it normally 50-50 with their artists, right? So no, I wouldn't interfere with this. I wouldn't do that. I always thought, we always thought about doing an auction where they can give a piece, and then we auction something off during the fair, and then maybe a part of the profit remain in a foundation where you can invite a young gallery from abroad. Those are things that I find very, very tempting, but they're incredibly time consuming.
Yep.
And maybe it also distracts, and I remember when we started one of our first galleries, we were discussing to create a fair street, where we put photography in this house, because in Basel you could do that, small town, and then she said to me, careful guys, it's a very respected dealer from Paris, and she said, careful guys, it's not a festival, it's a fair. It has to be commercial. And that kind of stuck with me, it's a commercial thing, and if you want to do a festival, you do a festival. But if you want to do a fair, it's commercial, and it remains
So
commercial.
maybe it's a separate entity at some point. Like you said, you've got the educational aspect, you've got the interest of getting like a foundation together to have a pool through the auction or whatever to help
Yeah.
for the younger galleries. Like maybe
Yeah.
there's like a biannual, Basel Fair
Sure.
that is
Sure.
not commercial, that is helping the
Yeah.
educational market and the fundraising and everything.
Yeah. I mean, the possibilities are really almost endless, but at the end of the day, yeah,
Yeah.
it's an incredible enterprise to steer, and it's a lot to do, and it's never ending, which is great, but also sometimes exhausting. And you need to kind of stay focused, because otherwise you're losing a bit you could be everywhere, and then the sales will not be that great.
Right.
And I think that's where we have to be very cautious. It's
Very
all
true.
about colleagues being happy and returning.
So do you have any last words of advice for anyone that's interested in becoming a fair director or working for a festival, like not the festival, sorry,
Well,
fairs?
Fair. I think if you want to work at a fair, there's no education that you can do. I wonder, it just happened to me. I think it's great if you just, like we every year we have people that apply for jobs or even interns, and at all ages. They were like, let's do that. And I think it's interesting if you really become part of it. You just work for the fair for a week, and then just get the whole spiel. And if you're really serious, and if you come from a place where there's no fair, just be bold and maybe stupid enough to just do it. If I had the knowledge now, would I still open up a fair? Maybe not. I doubt it, because it's crazy. But I think we were. I mean, I was 32. We were young. We were like, we didn't care. We had day jobs. At that time, so we didn't had to rely on profits or something. We just did what we liked. And we were lucky to just get some really cool galleries to come, and some really great press coverage to attract thousands of people at the first time,
And now
but
you're
no,
hooked.
now you're hooked. Yeah, it's like a drug. It's like, no, you're hooked, and yeah, just be blunt and just do it, and don't overthink it.
That's good advice for so many things.
No, because I remember I did talk. I'm not telling you who it was, but it was a pretty decent fair director who co-founded an incredible fair still existing, and he became some sort of a friend of mine, right? And I did ask him very early on. I knew someone that knew him, and I asked him, and he's like, "Oh, I don't think that Basel needs another fair." I was like, "Okay, but he also said, like, yeah, but you can try." And that's exactly what we did. And I think, yeah, if you'd listen to all of them, you probably wouldn't do it. So
True.
yeah.
So Sven,
And if you're an artist, try to get into a gallery. That's crucial. Try to somehow, if you want to be part of a fair, try to get into a gallery that represents you, and tell them to do a fair. I think, yeah.
Absolutely. This has been so much fun. Thank you so much for everything that you shared. It's been great. You've been super helpful, and I hope everyone has enjoyed it. And thanks again for all your time. Good luck in Miami. We're not coming this year, but I'll be back definitely in 2025. And if you're coming to New York, please give me a shout. So
We will.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining. I will be back in a few weeks. Thanks, everybody.